Hey everybody, Gooey here,
And Mases.
and we're continuing our ongoing discussion of various topics in Zelda, specifically Breath of the Wild, as it's a hot topic right now. Yet to be named segment, but hopefully coming soon. I wanted to talk about the art style of this game. That's always a big topic when any game comes out, even before it comes out. So I'm sure you've had your opinions on this for a little while already, but what were your initial feelings about it, especially having experienced it?
I'll take a step back even before. I remember when, this was way back, I think 2011 or 12, when they were first showcasing the Wii U. And
The tech demo, that was 2011.
They put out that tech demo, and it was like Twilight Princess on steroids even way beyond what Twilight Princess HD was.
Right.
And that had an appeal. Mm-hmm. And I was a little bit excited to see something like that, to see if we were going to go in that direction. Mm-hmm. But then they, did a 180 a little bit. And, it's not far off from the Skyward Sword art style.
No, not that far off at all.
I don't think it quite has the watercolor effect that Skyward Sword has. It's almost like a blending of Skyward Sword, but shifted a little bit towards like Twilight Princess a little bit. Mm-hmm. But it still feels like Skyward Sword and looks like Skyward Sword, I'd say, the art. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think I think it ties in some Wind Waker elements too, where like just the way certain things are shaded or colored. Obviously, it's still it's more realistic looking, like the character models and stuff like that. I mean, realistic, but I actually am a big fan of this style.
Yeah, I never, when playing it, I never stopped to think. It was never a distraction. Mm-hmm. It was never something that stood out to me. Like, it just felt natural is basically what I'm getting at. It's like, oh, that's what Arita looks like, and
oh yeah, it feels. I obviously got like caught up in like certain things that were different, like when I'm thinking about seeing Zora's Aritos that look interesting, like, oh wow, that looks wild, or I'll note, oh, this landscape is beautiful, but I don't think this art style is doing something different, or not different, but doing something irregular. It feels like the progression of Zelda, it feels very natural.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I like it. I really like it. This is probably the art style that will be the definitive art style, I think. I don't I don't see them fundamentally changing the art style going forward. Mm-hmm. At least not much. Maybe tweaking it a little bit, but I can't imagine them going. Can you imagine them like shifting towards something like the tech demo was at this point?
I don't think so. And I will say that I wouldn't even like that anymore. What do you think? Like,
I like this. I suppose the one like drawback to an extent. This is nitpicking though. Mm-hmm. It did go in a little bit like it took Skyward Sword and went one step towards realism, I think. Mm-hmm. And there's not as many of. I don't know if the goofy characters would fit in this art style as much.
Okay.
Like especially some of the weird, quirky enemies.
What were you thinking?
Even when you look at the choo-choos in this game, mm-hmm. comparing the choo-choos in this game to the Skyward Sword ones, they almost seemed more. Well, they were more bright and colorful mm-hmm. in Skyward Sword, and this one's a little more gritty, I think.
Yeah.
And it goes back to our enemy discussion of all the enemies were like humanoid-ish. They were all four limbs. They all just seemed darker.
Yeah, we were talking about how they were realistic to a point.
Yeah. I think the color palette had a lot to do with it. Like the Bokoblins, there was like I think the default easy ones were like the orange ones. Mm-hmm. And then there was, I think the blue ones were the next like step up.
Yeah.
They were like dark blue.
Dark blue, yeah.
And then I think were there white ones?
There were
like
white
polka dot ones or something like that? Or
yeah, they were white, I think.
Yeah, and there might have been a few other ones. Uh-huh. It made it kind of hard to distinguish occasionally. Like,
Yeah.
I think there were brown ones as well.
Oh, okay.
They were all, but when you think of some of the variants of Bokoblins from like Skyward Sword, the orange ones are bright orange. The
Yeah.
blue ones are much more notably. They're not like a navy blue. They're more like a more traditional blue, I'd say.
Yeah.
And then the yellow ones with the glasses or the goggles. It's like things were a lot more exaggerated, I'd say. I would say this with Wind Waker as well. And I think it's because the color palette allowed for that.
Yeah.
Maybe this one they went in a certain direction, and I think it works, and it's fine.
Yeah. Did you think the overall color palette of the game was more realistic?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
A little bit. It was a little. It was like everything. Comparing it to Skyward Sword, everything was brighter in Skyward Sword.
Okay.
But this goes more with the. This goes more with the game, though. It was a darker game. It's sort of like what in one of our previous videos we were talking about how you can always see Hyrule Castle. You can always see that darkness a little bit. That kind of, went with the game a little bit. When playing Skyward Sword and running through some of the areas of the overworld, you never really felt the doom and gloom.
Oh, yeah. Which I think in some ways in that game, sometimes it's a negative too.
Yeah.
Like, especially when you're towards the end of the game and you're collecting tad tones. This is a very cute main quest but mini game thing.
Yeah.
It's like maybe that's a whole nother story, but it kind of takes you out of the urgency of like, the world might end or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I do think it was more realistic, but I think I don't think a lot of the characters looked more cartoony than the other games, but I thought that some of the characters in this were kind of stylized, looking like they looked like, it's maybe too obvious a comparison, but like a Studio Ghibli movie or something like that, where it's a very serious, not dark, but a very serious anime, as serious as those movies are. But yeah, so I thought they kind of had a good mix of some cartoony elements, and they had some funny characters, like some of the Koroks were pretty funny, and some of the Gorons were pretty goofy, but
some of the reactions and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And Perla.
Do you think they'll try to incorporate some of the more goofy characters in future games? I feel like they have to.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. I'd like to see some of the more goofy characters, some of the more goofy enemies, goofy bosses.
It would be interesting to see Tingle in this world.
Yeah. Something like an enemy like Tentalis from Skyward Sword. The giant, he was the boss of the sand ship. If you remember him. He's so over-the-top goofy looking, like straight out of a movie,
Uh-huh.
Would not fit at all in this world, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Would you agree by that?
Yeah, I think they could do it, but it does, like, just thinking of that side by side with the enemies in this game, it doesn't quite compute.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the game is definitely more, I would say it's more mature than it is dark. Like,
I think that's a good characterization. Some of the scenes, like when you first enter Zora's domain, and you see like this massive, it's the scenery, I guess, more scenery than art style, I guess, but that's what a lot of this game is about. Just seeing that as a whole was like, whoa, they nailed it, I thought, at least with that specific area.
Well, I remember you were saying Zora's domain might be your favorite domain, or Zora's domain.
It's in my top 5 domains.
Yeah, seeing a lot of things realized in this game in a very, it's very more modern. The graphics are more modern, I would say. Seeing things that I've always wanted to see in Zelda portrayed a certain way, that I remember when I was younger and I thought Twilight Princess might scratch that itch, but then looking back on it, it didn't. So now seeing this and seeing things like the Temple of Time and, you know, just various classic locations, but in this way is like you said, whoa.
Yeah. I would say Twilight Princess did that for 2006 standards, though, because at the time I felt kind of the same in a sense, like, whoa. And I felt the same way with Wind Waker even before that. I do it with every game.
Yeah.
So whatever they throw out next.
That's the Zelda cycle, but with graphics.
Yeah.
The art style, I should say. Let us know what you thought about the art style in this game, and let us know if you have any other topics you'd like us to cover, and maybe a name for this too. Thanks for watching.
See you.